Hey, Frankie, I appreciate you joining me today.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, so let's go back to Saturday at Atlanta. It was your first trip to Atlanta Motor Speedway, and I know since the reconfiguration, they've talked about how it really has increased the way things happen, the speed that things happen. So I was just curious for your first time experience, what you felt going in, and then once you got on track after qualifying and the race started, what you were feeling on the track.
I think, not having any practice there made me not the word's not nervous, but you just don't know what to expect, right? Like you try to do it in the same, you work on it in the same and you don't know how close to reality that they will be. Sometimes they're spot on and sometimes they're not. And I remember feeling in the simulator stuff I did that it was actually fairly difficult to be flat. Like it was, you really had to like be perfect with everything you did. And it intimidated me going in, especially going into qualifying, right? One lap, don't
Right.
know what it's going to feel like. You've never seen it. And, surprisingly, like it was a lot more bumpy than I expected. I remember thinking that in the qualifying lap. I got out of the car and immediately said, man, I wish I could do that over because like I easily could have picked up just two or three tenths just on things that mistakes that I made or things that I did or um, just with it being my first time. But we weren't that far off. I mean, we qualified, I think 21st, but only like three or four tenths off. So that two or three tenths that I feel like I easily could have gotten that the car was capable of would have put us a lot higher in the running order. But we knew it was a long race and just going to go out there. But unlike Daytona, our plan always in Daytona was that we were going to ride, right? We were going to,
Right.
the first two stages, even half of the third stage, expecting that there was going to be a lot of crashes. Here, you can't do that, right?
Right.
The lap is
Right.
so fast. You can't, if you lose the draft, you'll be lapped very quickly. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so we knew we were going to immediately go and just start fighting and start trying to be in the pack in the race. I could not believe how intense that race is. Right? There's not a moment like Daytona, like especially when you're riding, but even like if you were in the pack, like sure it's still intense, but like there's a
Right.
moment where you're like, all right, we're just logging laps. We're at Atlanta, it is always insane. Like every time you go through the corner, you're kind of holding your breath, going like, wow. Um, I can't explain it. I can't put it into words. Um, a lot of races I feel like don't look fast on TV, right? It just looks like, oh, but like in person, it feels crazy. I feel like Atlanta looks fast on TV, and
Right.
it's even crazier inside the car. So it was cool.
So let's go through that first stage. And then in the end, in the break, over the radio, your team's talking to you about, they know you're learning and they're talking about being more aggressive. And at one point you said, I wanted to go, talked about going to the bottom, but you chickened out. So kind of talk to
Yeah.
me about that and what was going through your mind when you wanted to go to the bottom, but you did chicken out.
I mean that first stage really like I was just I don't want to say holding on for dear life, but like just getting my head wrapped around what it was, how
Right.
quickly things happen, where you need to place your car behind someone, and that middle groove, like that middle lane, which I guess would be considered the high line there, is where I mostly we were running. There was a few times, maybe it was in the second stage that I poked out, but like the runs that people would get on you and then when they would go below you, I felt like most of the times if we just maintained on the high side, like we'd get back by them if no one else went with them, right? If they couldn't like
Right.
do like a slide job on you, you'd have the momentum to get by them again, especially if they went down there by themselves. So I was just figuring all that stuff out. I mean, I remember the first 30 laps just being like when the stage was over, like going, all right, now I understand what the car is going to do. I had a few crazy moments. I had a few things that happened, but okay, I get it. I understand. And now, all right, let's start trying to move forward and attacking. Um, Stage two, definitely we were a lot more racy. I did play around with trying to like get around the one and trying to get around people and but most of the times when I would make a move, nobody would go with me, right?
Right.
So if someone went on the bottom, they would go with the people on the bottom and it would leave me out on the top. And so if I went on the bottom, everyone would stay on the top, right? So
Right.
there was a few times where I was like, all right, because even I remember Will, my spotter, going like, all right, we'll remember that. We'll remember
Right.
that they didn't go with us, and we won't go with them next time. You know what I mean? Like, Um, but I still, we were definitely picking off cars. Like we were making progress because, like I said, people would get impatient and would go to that inside line. And if I just stayed nose to tail with the guy in front of me, they can't get up, and you're going to get by them. So I felt comfortable doing that. And we know what our goal was for Daytona and Atlanta, right? Knowing that like these are races that we need to take advantage of from a point standpoint,
Right.
because there usually in both races are a lot of cars that fall out. And if we finish, we should have a good points day, which will help us later in the year. Because there are going to be races where we do struggle, right? Maybe
Right.
on speed or me, new place I've never been. Like, I look at a Darlington and I go, I know that place is going to be intimidating. And having never been there, like sure, I might be slower up to speed at a place like that. So like we want to make sure that we're good in the points to where we don't have to like get in on time,
Right.
at certain places, if that makes sense. So I kept thinking of that in the back of my mind too, right? Like we were being racy, like the cars I was racing with. I remember thinking that was the craziest thing. Like, Majeski was behind me, and
Yep.
I'm racing with Sawalich, and I'm racing with Tanner Gray, and Ben Rhodes, and Matt Like I was racing with like really good race winning guys, and that
Right.
felt good for me to be around them and like competing with them, and also for my team. I that's our goal, right? Is to be running with the top guys, and we felt like we were there. Um, Yeah. So stage two kind of, I don't think, excuse me, I don't remember anything specific happening in stage two that stood out other than the fact that like, did stage two go green the whole time too? I feel like both stages went green for
Yeah,
most of it.
but the notable thing that I had from stage two for you was your team on the radio talking about, hey, these guys aren't working with us. And you also saying, hey, they're not working with me. So I want to get to that at the end about your comments post race on the respect. So let's go
Yeah.
to stage three. And during that stage, what I noticed is, at that point you hadn't been riding around, but they were really starting to emphasize going into stage three, we got to be more aggressive. And
Yeah.
so there was one moment where on the choose box, they asked you, "Hey, what do you want to do on the choose?" And you said, "You tell me. I'm not good at this strategy thing." So I noted that as interesting because this is still so new to you, and you deferred to your team. So kind of give me the thought process behind that.
Yeah, I mean the choose thing, I've never done that in racing before, right? ARCA doesn't do it, and then
Right.
obviously racing open wheel stuff, they don't do that. So I haven't experienced it enough. And then in the races we did, like even Daytona, sure I had to do a choose a bunch of times, but it didn't matter. We were trying to get to the back no matter what. So it didn't matter what
Right.
lane I picked because we were gonna lift and let the pack go and then lead that second pack. So it never really mattered where I chose before, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Or like last year, I had some issues and I was a lap down or two laps down. You're at the tail end anyway. You know what I mean?
Right.
This was really the first race where I think we were in 14th at the end of stage two, if I remember correctly, or that's at least where we came out in the pits. So like it kind of mattered, right?
Right.
And I know that like more people were going to pick the top because that was the preferred line. And the closer up you get towards the front, the harder it is going to be to get up, right? There's not going to be
Right.
those holes like there would be maybe in the back. So I'm thinking of all those things, but I think if I had gone to the inside, I think I chose the top, but if I had gone to
Right.
the inside, or maybe sorry, I don't know, but like I
That's
can't
okay.
remember which one, but I would have moved up probably like six places if I went to the inside or on one of them.
Right.
But I kept thinking like I think that the top with this group is going to push everybody, and we're going to get by all of them or whatever it was. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
But it's hard for me to make those calls because I don't have enough experience of even knowing like, oh, do I prefer to be on the bottom here? I didn't do minus the initial start of the race. I wasn't on the bottom on any restart. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Sure.
So I just didn't know what the car was going to feel like or what it was going to do or what the momentum would be like. So I was trying to defer to them, but also like be assertive. And I don't know, definitely something I need to work on. I just didn't want to make the wrong choice, because unlike most tracks where like maybe it doesn't matter as much, like Vegas, for example, like the racing is going to get spread out enough to where like you can move wherever you want the lap after, right?
Right. Right.
Um, but yeah, no, definitely a new experience for sure.
So then in that third stage, Frankie, there's the accident and you avoid it, and then you guys, the red flag comes out and you get into a conversation with your team and they're telling you, hey, we need you to shut everything off, the car, your cool suit, everything. And then you come back with the response of, hey, do I need to turn off my CD player and Creed? And so then you break out into actually singing Creed.
Yeah. When we do fired up, when I tell you, obviously just the main truck power and the ignition, let that thing sit for a second, and then try to fire it. No other fans.
Copy. So I have to turn my Creed CD off?
Yes, unfortunately that'll have to be off.
With arms wide open, under the sunlight.
Thank you for singing what was playing in my head.
Welcome to this place, I'll show you everything.
So just walk me through that, because I know this is competition, but at this moment you're doing nothing. You're sitting there and you're trying to make light of the situation. So just kind of walk me through what was going through your head when you broke out into song.
I know in the past, especially when I first started back in ARCA, like my wife would tell me after the race, because she listens on my radio, she's like, you sound so stressed. Like you sound so intense. Like even when you are just talking, like you sound like you're not angry, but just like stressed. And she's like, I listen to other people on the radio and they just talking. And in my mind, I was always like, I don't feel stressed. Like, I think that's just the way I talk. Like, that's just the way I sound. And so I'm making it I'm a point of trying to be light on the radio, like just to even take myself out of that like super intense situation, just to breathe, right? Just to help me relax. And I don't know, he was talking about flipping all the switches off, and I don't know what made me bring up, does that mean I need to turn off my Creed CD as well? And then I started singing. But no, I love my team, and I get along with all my guys so well. And I don't know, I want them to smile, and I want, them to be excited and happy about what we're doing on track. And a lot of that comes from like a personality thing too, as much as that says, like, I want them to trust me in the car, right? Trust me what I can do on track, but also like we have a good, fun relationship as well, because then it makes everybody want to work harder and together and, keep fighting for what the goal is, right? If I'm a jerk or I'm mean on the radio, or what motivates them to keep trying to help me, right? They're sure they're helping the team, but in the end, like, they're putting in the work to like make sure that the car is as good as it possibly can be, and I'm driving the car, right? So I don't know. I do forget that people listen on the radio. And I saw a bunch of people talking about things that I said on the radio, and I go, oh shoot, like, I gotta remember that people are listening in.
So, but there's the moment right after that, and it actually, jumping back to the beginning of the race, you talked about there were fumes in your helmet. You said, I'm not dizzy, but I'm getting fumes in here. So then we jump forward to that crash and the Speedy Dry incident. And Kyle Busch talked about why he didn't have cats, and now he realized why, because he didn't like the cat litter. So talk to me through that, because watching it on TV, I was just like mind blown that they are blowing all of this Speedy Dry straight into the truck. So inside the cockpit, what was going through your mind as it clouded up?
I had everything off, fortunately, because like if you have your fans on, like it will suck it into the blower and like blow it into your face. And I just saw it coming when, like, literally right before they got in, and I shut my visor. Atlanta was extremely dirty anyway, like meaning like I've never really needed to take tear offs off as much as I needed, but like as soon as they tear it off 2 laps in, like you couldn't see, you know what I mean? And I couldn't believe when all that dust came in the car. I was just like, oh my goodness. Even when I got out, like after we had the wreck and I got out, I was literally covered in soot, like as if I was a coal miner, you know what I mean? I don't know exactly what they were thinking there. They could have moved us, before blowing, but I don't know. Yeah, it was Interesting, that's for sure. Made for a funny moment, I guess, on
It,
TV.
it was definitely an odd moment. So we jump forward toward the end of the race, and then you have the incident where it looked like the 19 slid up into you, and then you went into the 81 on the outside. Talk to me through that, because the race was, you were moving forward, and
Yeah,
once it happened, your response was, man, we were doing so good. You felt like you
yeah.
were really making progress, and then that happens. Talk to me about what
There's
happened there.
I remember my spotter telling me 35 laps to go, and I think I was in 10th or 11th. You know what I mean? Like I know
Yeah,
I was there were less cars in front of me than there were behind me. You know what I
sure.
mean?
Yeah.
And if you remember how my last year went, like last season, there was never a moment, minus the ARCA race in Talladega, where I felt like I was in the race. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whether it be me not being good enough, whether it be we had a mechanical issue and we were down a few laps, or whatever it may be, I never got to feel like I was in the fight. So I had never really gotten to prove myself in either the few Xfinity races I did or the truck races I did that I can race in this series against these incredible drivers.
Right.
And in that moment, that was the first time I went, I can do this. I mean, even the top 10 in Daytona, right?
Sure.
Amazing. But like that was more of a strategy play that we said from the beginning and we hope would work, and it worked. You know what I mean? Um, this was it just felt good to be in that fight. Like and with the guys who I was racing. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Sure.
Um, I know who they were. Like I know who was on my outside. I know who was behind me. I know who was pushing me. I know who I was chasing. And that felt really good. And I remember thinking, man, just finish. I remember going, if I keep just doing this, I don't need to make a move. I don't need to be aggressive. I can stay right here, right behind Stuart Friesen. And if I
Right.
stay right on his bumper, those guys are going to have a hard time getting by us. And we were fast enough to do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And what was it? 3 laps later, I don't know. It happened so fast, meaning here in general, like Atlanta in general, everything happens so fast.
Right.
And I remember my spotter saying like three wide middle. And I can only really see this way, like
Right.
to the left. I trust my spotter 100% that way because the headrest is there. You can't really see to your right. But I see the 19 Hemrick, and he's coming up. And in my mind, I'm thinking I'm on the top side, right? Because I'm following Friesen right behind him, and you track out to the wall. But the 19, does he know that the guy's on my outside? But I don't really know where Mozak is on my outside. I know he's there, but like, is he at my door? Is it just barely there? I
Right.
don't know any of that. This is all happening in like milliseconds.
Sure.
My this thinking. But all I know is he's closing in on me, and I almost am touching him. So I have to release the wheel a little bit, or I would have hit him kind of in the right behind the door, which would have probably put us in the wall either way, right?
Right. Right.
And then I hit the 81 and we're in the wall, and I just remember being just so disappointed because I know the point of racing is to be aggressive, right?
Sure.
I also feel like maybe people were frustrated that it was me that they were racing. You know what I mean? And like, like, or maybe they think that they can bully me. And that was one thing that going into the race, I talked to my guys about. I was like, I know that even on the start, because there was a lot of really good cars that were starting behind me. I go, they're gonna 100% try to bully me because they think I'm gonna lay over, right? But
Right.
I've got to prove to them that I'm not. Like I'm here to race. So I don't know if the 19 knew the whole situation as well, because then I also saw that the 13 we were actually four wide there.
Right.
You know what I mean? So maybe he heard middle. You know what I mean? And I don't know, but like, could it be that he was just trying to be aggressive and make me lift? You know what I mean, to get the
Sure.
spot. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't talked to them. But I was really disappointed because an 11th place, a 10th place, a 15th place finish would have felt really good. You know
Sure.
what I mean? Because we were there. That one stung more than, obviously if you're running 20th or 25th or whatever it is, and you're kind of in the hunt, but not really, and you get in a wreck. I felt like we needed that, or I needed it like I said, for me, like for my mental confidence going into the rest of the season. But also for the team, like top tens would have been insane to start the season
Sure.
when nobody expected us to be there. But so obviously I was disappointed. I should have. Now I think back and like I couldn't get down to the beginning of the pit lane because it's in that like the middle of that back straightaway.
Right.
But I should have just came off of 4 and gone into the pits. But I didn't know that like, if I'd get in trouble for cutting the line. You know what I mean? Like it's just
Right.
situational. You're in the moment. I knew the tires were down, so I was trying to go slow. I was trying to like get around one more time to get to the pit lane. But both the front and the rear were punctured, and I lost it into turn 1. The issue was where I got really frustrated was the car actually wasn't bad. Like I'm here at the shop. There's not one thing, there's some body work damage on it. There's nothing bent on it. You know what I mean? We 100% could put tires on it, put some Barabon on, and kept going and stayed on the lead lap. 100%. During the red flag, we lost the starter. They had to put the tow truck had to push me to refire under the red. So when I spun, it stalled, and I couldn't refire it. So my argument with the fish, like the safety team, was I literally pushed me 15 feet, and I'll be able to fire this car, and I'll get back to the pit lane. And they were like, "No, you have to get out." But the team was hearing something different in the pit box that like they were going to push me. They're like, don't get out, don't get out. I'm like, I'm not getting out, and they're yelling at me to get out. So they're like, we're putting on the tow truck. Either way, you're done. You're done. I'm like, they're telling me not to get out. You know. So there was some miscommunication of, you know, and we now know that all 3 series have a different rule when it comes to whether or not you can get pushed. What happens if you get put on a tow truck? You know, I think NASCAR, they can go back to the garage and they can still come back out. In the truck series, if you get put on the tow truck and you go to the garage, you're 100% done. There's no such thing as coming back out. So there was a lack of communication there, maybe. I don't, like I said, this is my first time. So I was listening to my team. They're telling me what to tell them. I'm trying to tell them. And it was really frustrating because if we had the starter, right, if the red flag didn't come out, right, I go back to that, you know, my starter wouldn't have gone bad or whatever. I probably would have just refired it and we would have driven to the pit lane. It probably would have been worth 5 or 6 spots if we got back out there. But when you're points racing, every spot matters, right? So we were pretty disappointed in that, 100%.
So it wasn't obviously the finish that you wanted, but I have to think that you were running. I was watching you. I was like, okay, he's right next to 98 Majeski, Ben. You're around all these good trucks. You have to take some confidence from this race on a super speedway, a modified super speedway, and take some confidence going into the rest of the season. Just because you were contending, you were with those top trucks inside the top 15 when it mattered. An incident took you out, but you have to take something positive from it, I would guess.
Yeah, you know, obviously I feel bad for my team because we were there, right? The truck was so good. It was great.
Right.
You know what I mean? And now we're sending it off to the body shop to get fixed. You know what I mean? That was supposed to be my Vegas truck. We're still hoping that we can get it done before that. I just don't want to give them more work. I want them to get the reward for us running good. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Obviously, yeah, Josh, team owner, he came up. He's like, look, he's like, I'm not mad. He's like, we showed them that we're there. We showed them that we can do it. You know what I mean? You showed them. And I think that's important for us as a team. You know, there's a lot of teams that, not to talk about money, but are probably spending a lot more money than we are as an organization. And the fact that we can compete against them says a lot about how hard everybody's working here. I want people to see that. You know what I mean? Josh has that third truck. He's running that third truck, you know, because he was anticipating the fact that, you know, maybe more people would be calling, more drivers would be calling to fill that seat. And we're hoping with the way, you know, 2 top 10s at Daytona, and then the way we were running, because even, you know, Josh was running awesome at Atlanta. He was up there too. You know what I mean? So it wasn't just the one truck. But we want to prove to people like, you know, you can come here to this team and we're taking to the next level. And that's why I wanted to finish. But I mean, yeah, I want it for me too, right? I want it because there's still a lot of naysayers. You know what I mean? People think it's cool that I'm in the series, or like for the most part, but I still don't think people think that I can compete. So I wanted it to prove to them that I can, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll go to the post race remarks about respect, but it also takes me back to you and I having that conversation at Daytona, and you talking about the ARCA series and how you had to earn the respect, and you finished, top 10, top 10, and you earned the respect of the ARCA drivers. Now we're 2 races in to this 2025 Truck Series season. You get the top 10 at Daytona. You're running well. After the race, you're obviously frustrated with some of that lack of help, I guess, in the different stages. And I know your teammate or your team said over the radio, I think at one point he said, show them the finger, and you opted not to do that because they were bullying you, not letting you in line, whatever the case may be. So
Yeah.
talk to me about the respect level, and what do you think will have to happen for you to earn that respect going forward?
I mean, it is hard. I've thought about, the comments they made since the race. It's hard because like it is kind of a super speedway, but it's to me, it's so isn't. Like it's so I don't know, it's so much more than like a Daytona or a Talladega, I feel
Right.
like Atlanta was. Like even the way you have to drive the car, the way it changes where you are behind people, like everything affects you. I feel more at Atlanta than Daytona or Talladega for sure. I race everybody really clean, you know what I mean? And maybe to a to a point where it's almost a negative for me. You know what I mean? My grandpa, before he just passed away a few months ago, but he used to watch my ARCA races. He's 95 years old, and I'd see him. And I go, "What'd you think about the race?" And he go, "You're not aggressive enough." That's what he would say. Not like, "Oh, you did good. You finished fifth," or "You're not aggressive enough." He's like, "Everybody hits you, but you don't hit them back." That's what he used to say to me.
Right.
And I'm like, well, the racing that I used to do, like the open wheel stuff, you can't touch each other,
Of
right?
course.
Because someone's gonna fly and turn into an airplane. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so I just got so used to not being able to like lean on people or kind of, like move people out of the way that like I just I just don't really know how to do it. You know what I mean? Just because I've always learned that you can't. Or you'd at least get in trouble if you did. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Sure.
But I've now been in this sport long enough that I should know better. But I was more speaking about the fact that like we clearly had a fast truck and everybody opted to go the opposite way than us. You know what I mean? I wasn't talking about the crash at
Sure.
all with that comment. It was just like I'd go down low and everybody would stay up high. I
Right.
would stay up high and everybody would go down low. You know what I mean? Like they didn't trust or respect the speed that we had. Maybe they
Mhm.
just didn't think that we belonged there. I was talking more on that
Sure.
level. Obviously, I know it's racing. Everyone in the end is out for themselves. I get that. You know what I mean? But I was hoping to have a few moments where I went, okay, sweet. Like these guys are understand that I'm up here for a reason, or I'm here for a reason. And
Sure.
I never I shouldn't even be talking about it race two because I didn't expect to have respect by race two. I don't,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? But it was just proven in that moment because there were so many times where like they went the bad way. They went the wrong way. The people thinking that it'd be better, and I got by all of them. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it was just like, I don't know. I don't know. I thought it was interesting for sure. You know, I heard
Well,
Connor Mozak's interview after the wreck, and he said something like the 33 was so slow and we just had to get by him. And I'm like I was literally pushing freezing. Like there's no faster I could have gone when the
right.
incident happened. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't drive through him. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So like even that comment, if it were the 98 who were in that situation, he wouldn't have said the 98 was so slow. So I still think in his mind it's the excuse that they not. I'm not saying excuse. It's the expectation maybe of seeing the 33 or seeing my name on the car, that it's easier to say that. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's kind of what I'm talking about. You know?
Well, I guess over time, if you continue to do what you've done in those first 2 races, you'll earn the respect, and they'll treat you as such. But I
Yeah, and
really,
I don't. I'm not looking for a cookie, if that
right,
makes sense. You know what
absolutely.
I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm
Sure.
not. It's just I don't know. I know it's gonna be hard. I,
Sure.
I said that I think to you at Daytona. Like I
Yep.
know that this year is not going to be easy at all, and so far it's been really fun. I mean, obviously, I would have liked to have a different outcome on Saturday than
Right.
wrecking with 30 to go, but um, it's been really cool to feel like I'm a race car driver again.
Right.
Because I didn't get to feel that last year. And I'm not gonna lie, I did maybe enter this year going like, can I do this? Like almost doubting myself a little bit. And it helped prove to me and just remotivate me even more to just keep working and keep going because I think we can surprise some people throughout the rest of the year.
Right. Well, Frankie, I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with me and recapping in Atlanta. I wish you the best of luck at Las Vegas, and
Thank you so much.
we'll chat after that race in a few weeks.
Sounds good. I'll try not to sing Creed there.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Take care.
See ya.